Commissioner Townsend.
Good evening. How are you?
Thank you. We will get started here shortly. Just want to make sure you were on the line, all right?
I am on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I want to thank everyone for coming to the meeting tonight. I'll ask the clerk to announce the meeting and call the roll.
Roll call. Markley. Here. Walters. Philbrook.
Here.
Walker.
Here.
Townsend.
Here.
McKiernan.
Here.
Mugia.
Here.
Maddox.
Here.
Kane. Here. Holland.
Here. This evening, the invocation is being given by Reverend Dennis Wistrom. We would ask everyone to please stand for the invocation and to remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Almighty God, as we come before you this evening with our members who are representing our city, we bring them to you and pray that you would bless each one of them, give them wisdom to know how to help direct our city. We thank you for each one of them and all that they do for our city. We also pray that you would bless our city, help us to be an example to the world around us. May we keep our faith very important to us, for we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our first item of business tonight is a proclamation for National Service Day. I'm honored to be joined tonight with the mayors of Edwardsville and Bonner Springs, Mayor McTaggart and Mayor Harrington, and I'm going to join them at the podium, and we're going to share a proclamation and recognize all of the volunteers that we have here tonight.
All right, you start now. I'm going to start.
All right, go.
You're going to finish.
Whereas service to others is a hallmark of the American Charter, essential to how we meet our challenges, and whereas the nation's mayors are increasingly turning to national service and volunteerism as a cost-effective strategy to meet city needs, and whereas AmeriCorps and Senior Corps address the most pressing challenges facing our cities and nation, from educating students for the jobs of the 21st century and supporting veterans and military families to preserving the environment and to helping communities recover from natural disasters. And
whereas national service expands economic opportunity by creating more sustainable, resilient communities and providing education, career skills, and leadership abilities for those who serve. And whereas national service participants serve in more than 70,000 locations across the country, bolstering the civic, neighborhood, and faith-based organizations that are so vital to our economic and social well-being. And whereas national service participants increase the impact of the organizations they serve with, both through their direct service and by recruiting and managing millions of additional volunteers. And
whereas the glasses come.
And whereas now that I can see, okay, I lost our place. Oh, perfect. Don't you usually give the best runner the last leg?
You got it.
That's the problem. I just dropped the baton. Whereas national service represents a unique public-private partnership that invests in community solutions and leverages non-federal resources to strengthen community impact and increase the return on taxpayer dollars. And whereas AmeriCorps members and Senior Corps volunteers demonstrate commitment, dedication, and patriotism by making an intense commitment to service, a commitment that remains with them in their future endeavors. And whereas the Corporation for National and Community Service shares a priority with mayors nationwide to engage citizens, improve lives, and strengthen communities. And in joining with the National League of Cities, City of Service, and mayors across the country to recognize the impact of service on this Mayor's Day of recognition that was celebrated nationally this past Tuesday that we're representing tonight. Now, therefore, we, the three mayors of the cities of Wyandotte County, do hereby proclaim April 7, 2015 as National Service Recognition Day and encourage residents to recognize the positive impact of national service in our city and thank to all of those who are giving back. We do have a number of volunteers with these programs from around the area here tonight, and I would ask all of them to stand and to be recognized. Let's give them a big hand. Now, I gave the volunteers the opportunity to stay for the remainder of the meeting, but I think the mayors are going to lead the charge out. So, but they had the chance to stay. So, thank you very much, Mayor. Good to see you. Mayor,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
that was mine.
Yeah, don't forget that one.
All right, thank you.
That print was very small. All right. Ms. Cobbins, are there any revisions to tonight's agenda?
There are no revisions, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. I do want to make one more special recognition. We have two high school students from Rockhurst High School who are in a U.S. government class for civic experience, and they volunteered for this meeting. We want to recognize Nick Verbeck and John Russell in the back. Can you wave to us, gentlemen? All right, welcome. Pay special attention. There'll be a quiz at the end. All right. All right. Item number 2 is a request to send communication to UG employees and contractors. I'll turn this over to Mr. Bach to say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor. This is really, I will say, a directive that's been brought upon us from our current ordinances and regulations lay out that when the unified government or the Board of Public Utilities are doing various projects, be it on our own facilities and such, we should follow our development and review process. It is one that's probably been in action for years that we don't follow that process necessarily and we move on. So it's led to a few actions happening where we've had to go back, retract that, or not been able to because we didn't build it into the original budget. Through our joint meetings with the Board of Public Utilities, where we meet with them quarterly, where we have elected officials from each side set on that, come to the conclusion that We will begin following all the development review process as we go along. So thus we'll send a directive out to the organization to make it clear, as well as Mr. Gray, General Manager of the Board of Public Utilities, has acknowledged that he will be doing the same.
So this action, I actually initiated this. There have been a number of times when our Public Works Department or our building groups, and the unified government has a lot of employees doing a lot of great work, and there's sometimes an effort to be expedient and make sure things get done as inexpensively as possible. But sometimes we've put things on the outside of buildings or in places that don't follow our current requirements that we expect of other businesses. So there is equipment placed in the lawns and other things in unified government facilities that we would not allow another business to do, and in fact we would give them a citation and expect them to move it. The same with Board of Public Utilities. There have been instances where utility work has gone on and it has not gone through our review process, and if another utility, whether it be AT&T or one of the gas companies, had performed the same work, we would have had them redo it. Because of the way it was laid out on our city streets. So what this does is I thought we needed to pass a law that we had to follow our laws, and it turns out that there is a law that we should follow our laws, and this is just a reminder, and I wanted to bring it to this commission to take formal action on this, to make sure that that's a clear directive both to ourselves and to the Board of Public Utilities. Look, our city does a great job, and the Board of Public Utilities does a great job. So it's no knock on the organizations. It's just an awareness that it's been easy to not go through the normal process that everyone else has, and it's really a call to an awareness for all of our departments to make sure that we're as diligent following the codes of excellence that we have for all businesses, that we lead the way and lead by example. So that's really what this is about, and just would appreciate the Commission's interest and the community's interest. So is there a motion?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments? Seeing none, roll call.
Roll call. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Aye. Philbrook.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
Maddox.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion carries.
All right, that now brings us to our consent agenda. Would anyone on the commission
approval.
or anyone in the audience like to remove an item from the consent agenda? Any item not removed will be voted on by a single vote.
Second.
Let the record show no one is moving forward to pull anything off. It is properly moved and seconded. Roll call.
Roll call. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Aye. Philbrook.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
Maddox.
Aye.
Kane. The vote is 9-0. That motion carries.
All right, that brings us now to our administrative agenda. The first item is a resolution for the on-goal soccer agreements, better known as U.S. Soccer. Mr. Bach?
Thank you, Mayor. We're very excited to finally have this project in front of the governing body for consideration for final approval tonight. This is a project that was first announced last July with the governor as he was in the community. This really is a continuation of projects that are going on in the Schlitterbahn area, as part of the whole project that was approved many years ago, and then we've moved forward with amendments with the Schlitterbahn portion of it. We had recently did approval of the dairy farmers project that was in this area, and now we're ready to move forward with the final approval of how we're doing with the U.S. Soccer, and then there's also amendments to this as to how some things were done with the original sporting agreement. With that, I'm going to let Mr. Brakovich come forward, and he's going to give a presentation on the project tonight.
Before I do that, I'm going to call on Commissioner Walters.
I just wanted to let everybody know I need to recuse myself from this discussion because my company is involved in the planning of this project.
Thank you very much. It is in the record. Mr. Brakovich.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. George Brakovich with Economic Development. I want to take a quick moment to recognize some of the other team members, both on the UG's position on this as well as the developer. Mr. Todd LaSala is working with us as UG counsel, and then Rob Heineman and Chase Simmons are here representing the developer. Our presentation is one that's should be familiar to the commissioners that are on the standing committee. It's kind of the same format they've seen twice on this project, and so really we'll probably do a lot of this presentation in concert with Mr. LaSala and probably Mr. Heineman if you have those questions. So we typically have a slide that tells you about what we're here for tonight and kind of the history on this project. I think we're all familiar with the history of the project, and so really what we're here for tonight are there's, like Mr. Bach mentioned, there's 2 documents that go along with this particular project. Before we dive into those, let me just spend a couple of minutes on the STAR District. This was the expanded STAR District that was approved last August. And you can see the various project areas, kind of the beige colored. Project Area 1 represents the existing water park. Project Area 2, or the gold color, is the Auto Plaza that's construction's underway. It looks a lot different out there right now than it did a year ago. And you can kind of see some pad sites that bleed into that purple area representing hotel and restaurant opportunities there. You approved a project plan for Area 1 and Area 2 at the same time the district was created. Project Area 3 in the green always kind of represented some future development. It had a square footage requirement on retail. That square footage requirement was going to be reduced if you could win an office project, and as Mr. Bach mentioned, we were fortunate enough to win the dairy farmers deal. And Project Area 4, then, in the purple, is really what we're here to talk about tonight. So starting on the left side of the screen, you'll recall that's an overlay into the Village West area. That is just for the incremental change, in the sales tax. So as the existing STAR bonds are paid off, none of those sales tax revenues are affected. They flow to all the appropriate jurisdictions. It says those are retired and there's incremental change that becomes available to help pay for this project. So the purple in the middle represents about a 40-acre site that's leased for the U.S. Soccer project. It's leased from the Schlitterbahn folks. And then the purple on the far right represents about a 130-acre site, the Spear family property, where the youth tournament soccer fields are proposed. And we've got a little more detailed slides on all of those coming up. Wanted to kind of go back real quick. This was the exact slide that you saw in August of 2014 when we were talking about just the totality of this STAR district. Again, tonight we're talking about the U.S. Soccer project, which is an extremely strong component of this district. It's a $64 million project that will be part of a almost $665 million project when the district is completed. So the 2 documents we're here for tonight, again, the development agreement and the the First Amendment to the venture agreement. Kind of trying to highlight some of the key components that each document considers. On the SVA, you'll recall the original agreement was looking for 3 urban soccer fields. This has a proposal to replace those urban fields with a variety of futsal locations, and again we'll get into a little more detail with that. Again, the tournament fields, those were originally planned in Wyandotte County Park in Bonner Springs, and now that's proposed to move to the Spear family site, and staff is in support of that. And then the U.S. Soccer Development Agreement, again it's a $64 million STAR bond project. It does include the National Training Center, and then again the tournament fields component of that. So starting with the tournament fields, we tried to do a little inset of that original STAR bond district map and then impose over kind of a more detailed drawing of what the Spear family property would look like. So you can see highlighted are 8 tournament fields and then 4 future fields. So part of the youth tournament venue has a requirement that there are 12 fields made available. 8 are definitely going to the Spear site. We could add, or the developer could add 4 here, or use 4 of the fields that will be on the National Training Center site to create that 12-field venue. You'll see also on this slide there's kind of an area there. State Avenue is on the south side or the bottom of the slide, and it leaves about a 50-acre area that's unplanned. We do have some provisions in the agreement that talks about who has development rights to that and how that works. And if you'd like to hear a quick summary of that, maybe I can ask Mr. LaSala, or we could come back to that later if there's questions. Okay, keep going. You want that? Okay.
Thank you, George. I'm Todd LaSala. Very quickly, on the balance of the Spear property, that lower half nominally of that property, the developer, in this case On Goal, will be the developer of record of that site for 2 years. Well, what does that mean? That means that they have really the first right to propose projects to the UG and have access to that site to use to do those projects. If they exercise that right, they have to present you a plan. You have to approve the use and like the plan. But assuming that is all the case, they would then pay the UG for that site. We're going to take ownership of that site in connection with the closing of the STAR bonds, and they would pay us close to $57,000 an acre for the land that they would use if they exercise those development rights. That's the same price that's being paid under the option agreement with the Spear family. That occurs for a 2-year period. During that same 2-year period, the UG has the right to propose projects to the developer, go to the developer and say, hey, we have something we'd like to do on that southern half. And the development agreement provides a mechanism for you all to work that out with them if that's the case. At the end of 2 years, really the UG would be the primary developer of record. Thereafter, you would be in the driver's seat on those proposals. The only thing that the developer has asked after that initial 2-year period is that we don't do industrial uses there or ticketed events for hockey. And so they've asked for restrictions on that second half of that site to last for a period of 20 years. Okay? If there aren't questions, I'll turn it back over to George.
Okay, so then moving back to the 40-acre lease site for the U.S. Soccer project. Again, it's that middle section in purple on that Star District map, and we've kind of highlighted a little more detail here. What the development agreement calls for in regards to the National Training Center is a 100,000 square foot facility. And so what's still being designed or options being reviewed is that a single building? Is that spread amongst a campus type environment? But again, the components we're looking for, the NTC itself, it's got some combination of indoor and outdoor fields. And what we did at the standing committee, I can invite Rob up and he can kind of talk a little bit more about the design elements here, because there are some things that are reserved as future development. You see a kind of a, rather than individual fields, you see a large area. So Rob, if you don't mind, maybe you can give them some details. Thanks.
Hi, good evening. I'm Rob Heineman with Sporting Club. We've just really started to get into the design of this site, and it's not the easiest site in the world from a grade perspective. There's lots of elevation changes. So we've been spending a lot of time on trying to figure out what way we can develop it such that we've got a lot of intimacy for the training environment for U.S. Soccer and for sporting. So that's what we've done. We've kind of reoriented the site more from the western edge to the eastern edge. And I really like this site now. I think it's coming together quite well, that you'll be able to enter off parallel at kind of one level and then look down to the fields below, and that's section D. And then really what we're looking at D is just trying to maximize how many fields we can get really on the same plane without having to do a bunch of terraces and things of that nature. So that's still a bit up in the air as we do design. But overall, I think we like this design a lot. There's probably some future development we can do up there on F, but I think we've been having some discussions with Schlitterbahn, who obviously owns the site. We have a lease with them. We do have, various restrictions on what we can put on the site. So I think we'd like to look at some of that future development collaboratively with them, see if it's synergistic to what they're doing, what they're thinking. And, I think that's the piece of ground for us that's a little bit up in the air. But otherwise, I think, everything you see there, A, B, C, E, F, and D, we feel pretty good about where the planning's coming together.
All right. Okay, a couple more details then on the SVA. As it relates to futsal, there's been some discussion with using existing park property and underutilized tennis courts, and very similar to the project that was done at Wyandotte High School. So really the best way to think about that is one tennis court equates to one futsal field. So we've got various parks that already have existing double tennis courts, and the conversion of those tennis courts to futsal is part of the developer's responsibility on this. However, if there's any facility that needs repair to the base, or if it's a single tennis court location, that needs a second base built to get 2 sites, the UG will finance and provide the base structures, and but again, the developer comes in and does the surface and the fencing and all the other components that come along with that. So what we've tried to do is just remind everybody what are the existing double courts, what are the existing single courts, and again, kind of targeted completion date on this is really sometime this year. We think it'll come together in a fairly rapid fashion.
Can we, Mr. Heineman, would you come forward? There may be some people in the audience or on television who are not as familiar as futsal. The commissioners have heard a lot about it. I had never heard of it until about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty excited about it now. So can you share just a 2-minute piece about why we're all excited about futsal?
Sure. Well, you know, I mean, it's in some places of the world it's called football rapido. In Europe, it's called futsal for the most part. It's small-sided soccer. It's a small field. It's a hard court as opposed to grass. And basically what it really does is develops technical foot skills for players. So the interesting thing is, as we've gone through the UG over the years and looked at these tennis courts, in many of those locations you'll see pop-up soccer goals sitting there today and kids playing on those same courts. So it really came to us as something that we thought could be a very good use for an asset that's being underutilized today. And honestly, as far as growing the game from a sporting perspective, it's really exciting to us because, you know, these are some of the skills that candidly a lot of players in the United States don't develop very well at a young age. So having something like this available and then allowing us and U.S. Soccer to contribute to the curriculum on what's going on those courts is exciting to us. So I think it'll be a great amenity that will be well utilized, and I think it'll help us in the long term win soccer games at Sporting Park. The one thing that I'll say on this is these will be pretty quick for us to build once we sort of have everything together. So the approval tonight, any approvals that we need from the Parks Department to the extent it's on park ground, you know, any conditions that we just need satisfied to get under construction. And then once we're under construction, it's probably a 70 to 90-day process. So we, you know, would love to have all these knocked out so kids could still play on them, you know, late this summer, early fall would be our intent.
Great. And thank you for that. It's also, kids play at 5-on-5, and it's just a tennis court size court.
Yeah.
And it's also, for the development agreement, when we originally signed this with Cerner, Cerner office buildings, the new stadium, the tournament fields, and it was not going to be futsal courts. It was going to be 3 regular soccer fields that were going to be built throughout the community. And as we worked that as a commission for several years, this idea of actually having 10 instead of 3 and spreading them around and having this unique opportunity for futsal really became an idea that I personally got very excited about, and I think some of the other commission did as well. It's just the maintenance on a grass field when kids are playing on it just to play and not just for tournament. Here's the problem we had. If we were going to do 3 tournament fields in the urban area, if it's a tournament field, you have to put a fence around it to protect it for tournaments. If you just open it up for everyone to play on, it gets played down to dirt, and it's very difficult then to play tournaments on. I can tell you, if we built 3 fields in our city and put a fence around them, that would not be well received. And so having these futsal courts that are open to the public all the time, hard surface that the kids can play on, 5-on-5. If you go out to Wyandotte, where the first 2 are, beautiful court, you're going to see kids lined up to play there all the time. So it's really a great opportunity for the community. So I just wanted to say more about that because I think this is an asset that we're going to appreciate for years.
Well, and I think the thing that you nailed on the head too, Mayor, is, you know, you can play 5v5, 3v3, and, you know, playing a full soccer field, it's a tough thing for kids to organize that many people to go play. So I just think this format's going to work a lot better for daily community use.
Thank you. Commissioner Kane.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I'm glad the property's growing on you because I know there for a little while it wasn't. Are you still planning on building the hotel on the Slitterbaum site?
You know, we don't have a definitive plan on where the hotel is going to go at this point or where hotels may go. You know, hopefully based on the U.S. Soccer agreement that we have in place, it should allow us over time to utilize multiple hotels. You know, at this point, until we finalize this agreement tonight, we haven't really done anything definitively with any hotel developers on where that site location will go.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Brakovich?
And we've already kind of touched on the tournament fields. Again, just it's a 12-field venue. Wanted to highlight, though, that the target or the requirement within the agreement is that those are built and managed, and I think the developer is committed to having that in place by the spring of 2017.
Commissioner Walker.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Second.
Now, I'm making a motion to approve the First Amendment to the development agreement, and I can't remember the title of the second.
Okay.
I can't pull it up here on my computer.
I do need to ask, do we need one motion or two? Is it a-
Unless there was going to be any dispute about the different ones, one motion is sufficient.
So we need one motion to approve.
Okay.
There's a resolution authorizing the execution
That's
of
right.
the two documents.
I'm making the motion to approve the resolution, authorize execution of the two documents.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Commissioner Philbrook?
One more question. So, back to the hotel thing. You, originally, they have the hotel off of 94th Street, right? No, 98th Street, okay. So, what, and I'm gonna show my ignorance here, because when you look at these contracts, you guys are used to this stuff all the time. I don't read these kind of contracts. So if you could elucidate for me and tell me, how open does that leave you on where you put the hotel, this agreement?
I would say that it leaves us a lot of flexibility in where we put the hotel.
So it could be
we don't have
anywhere-
anything definitive on the hotel.
So it could be anywhere from the Sphere property on the front side on State to out on 98th Street.
Well, specifically to the front side of the Spear site, that's never a location that we would put it because of the residential on the south side.
Okay.
And I know that was a specific concern of yours when we did meet.
It was, yes, because I had people chewing on me.
Yeah, so that will not be the hotel location. We can guarantee that that's not where it will be.
Okay.
There are hotel sites that we think could be appropriate for this throughout Village West. There are multiple on the Schlitterbahn site, ones that are on Schlitterbahn ground that we do not have a lease on. And then we do think there's a site or two on ground that we do have a lease on, but if we were to move forward on that location, we would have to have the approval of Schlitterbahn to do so.
Okay.
But there are a number of different locations out here, but the frontage on State Avenue is not one.
Well, I appreciate you letting us know it out here in the open, though.
Sure, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Brakovich, we do have a motion on the floor. How much longer of the presentation is there? How many more slides?
Good question. 3.
Okay, 3 slides. Can you just hit those quickly?
Sure,
Because we want to move.
absolutely.
We want to move on.
Okay.
Benefit of the public just to see it. If you can do it quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the changes is in regards to the parking lease that we have on Sporting Stadium. You'll recall there was improvements made on the Speedway property that lease back to this, and we've got certain revenue streams, and we just want to make sure those revenue streams are shored up, that they cover the debt service on the bonds issued to make those improvements. Again, the development agreement, National Training Center, indoor-outdoor components. There are local benefit provisions that give preference both in pricing and order of preference to local groups. The UG's Park and Rec Department also has a free or reduced rate on certain components of that as well. And then, again, just reminding, it's a $64 million Star Bond Finance project. We try to highlight some of the key components of that. Those 4 items don't add up to 64. They're just the bigger components of it. There is a radius restriction of 500 miles that U.S. Soccer can't do another project like this within that restriction. And then one of the commissioners during the standing committee had questions or a follow-up was, do we look at rate of return or rate of investment, return on investment for the UG on this project? So what we try to do is highlight a couple different, 2 different components from different documents. The first is a local revenue pledge. This is based on the one of the bond underwriters' response to the RFP. We think that, again, 31 to 42 million of local sales tax dollars up to 17 years flow into this project to help pay for it. Using CSL's study, they did 3 feasibility studies. Using the most recent one that was dated, I believe, July of 14, we think that the project will produce $65 million in new local sales tax dollars over 30 years.
Thank you. Commissioner Kane.
Thank you, Mayor. I think the commission should be kept up to date on where this hotel is going. So we have an idea of whether it's the exact location? Because we need to figure out what's financially beneficial for the UG as well.
Thank you. Commissioner McKiernan.
Just real briefly before we take our vote, I just want to thank Mr. Heineman and Sporting for how they followed through on the futsal courts and how that's going to ultimately be executed. Very appreciative of how it's going to turn out.
All right. So we...
Mayor?
Yes, Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you. I, too, wanted to express my appreciation to the gentleman with On Goal and Sporting KC for their follow-up on this. I had some concerns during the standing committee that our kids not have to make a choice between learning how to play tennis or soccer. And I am very appreciative of the outcome that will place a futsal court at Garland Park. And we welcome futsal in the Northeast District of the city. So thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. The motion is and second are before us for the resolution to adopt the items before us. Roll call.
Roll call. Markley.
Aye.
Philbrook.
Aye.
Walker.
Kirk, yeah.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
Maddox.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
The vote is 8-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. We look forward to continuing the great partnership. All right. The next item, item number 2, is a request for funding from the YMCA. The Standing Committee heard this and forwarded it on. We have an option of hearing the presentation from the Y if you would like to hear it tonight. Or a motion. Want to hear the presentation? All right. We'll hear the presentation from the Y.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Mayor,
Commissioner?
Commissioners. I'm John Mikos, Chief Operating Officer for the YMCA. We appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this evening. In front of you is a packet of the presentation, and there's also materials that we've supplied to you on some of the work that the YMCA has been doing in Wyandotte County, specifically for your individual districts. And that's information we won't be going over tonight, but if you have any questions on those, feel free to ask those. We are very appreciative and very happy to be partners with the UG for the past 2 years through your funding and support to help the H Street YMCA continue its operation. We would not have been able to do all the things we've done in this community without your support. I'm also very proud to be able to say that we've used those resources that you've provided us in this last year to really leverage those things to be able to do more in this community had we not had that support. Now, many of you know that we do operate with membership, and we also have some other funding sources. So we'd like to give you a little bit of a picture of what we've done for this last year. And we think that we can continue to maximize all this work that we have done and continue to move forward into next year as we begin to be part of your plan to be part of the Healthy Campus as we move forward. So to begin with, here's some demographic information regarding our membership. And this is just through 2014. Through this last year, serving 3,500 children, teens, adults, and other seniors, which represent about 631 households in 2014. I can tell you as of today, that number has gone up to 801 households and serving over 4,000 individuals. The other thing that's really proud for us to be able to tell you today is 81% of those people that we're serving every single day are receiving financial assistance. And those that are receiving financial assistance are those that are of need, having an average household income of right around $18,000 per year. So I'm going to be very clear about that. Those that are coming and utilizing the facility as members are receiving financial assistance, and we are not turning anybody away. Additionally, our membership and the people that we're serving as members of the Y are a very good reflection of the community that we serve. 7% Hispanic Latino, 28% Caucasian, 23% African American. Very good reflection of the community that we're serving. This next slide really speaks to the leveraging of the resources that we've been receiving from the unified government this last year. $200,000 of grant services that are pass-through revenue that we're able to put directly into the community. These funds are not going to support the operations. That's the funding it is that you give us. This is direct impact work for the community for which we would not be able to get this type of grant funding had we not been able to get your support that you have given us in this past year, almost tripling the resource allocation that you have given to us to the Y. When you start breaking it down in terms of what this looks like, in terms of the breakdown, in terms of revenue sources from the Y and where the UG money actually comes into it, 71% of our operating revenue comes from membership dues. That's the biggest source of our overall operating revenue, followed by the unified government support, which last year was totaled $86,000. This year, we're requesting $75,000 for the full 12 months. Followed by an additional $61,000, again, leveraging even more funds through annual contributions that we ask for in the local community to be able to pass through for services through programs and services. Another couple percent for program fees, followed by 1% in facility rentals. So that gives you the overall picture of the operation. What we'd really like to do now is give you a face to all those folks that we are serving that may not even be members of the Y. So I'd like to introduce our Executive Director for the H Street YMCA, Simeon Henderson.
Good evening, everyone. Like John kind of alluded to already, the impact that we have at the 8th Street YMCA in Wyandotte County is amazing. On an annual basis, during the month of August, we have a book bag giveaway. So this past year, despite the rain and thundering that happened in this past August, we've served over 350 young people. Each one of the individuals that came to our facility received a free book bag, a haircut, and school supplies. That's an amazing impact that we had. We also have free cooking classes that's sponsored by Harvesters. We have the cooking class is taught in Spanish. Well, we have several cooking classes, but one is definitely taught in Spanish. We also have a cooking class for young people as well. So their family as well as the parents have the opportunity to come and learn and get free instructions about that. We also have a program to really address the achievement gap. So we have a early learning readiness program. This is a year-round program where we offer it completely free to the community for children from the age of 1 to 5, where they can come in with their caregiver and we assist them with preparing them for school in the future. At our facility, we also have 3 Girl Scout chapters. We have 2 that's taught in Spanish and 1 that's taught in English. And we have on a weekly basis about 16 to 20 participants that come and participate in this class at our location as well. This is one of my personally favorite courses. This is a collaboration with Leadership through 2000. It's a program called Night Courts. What this allows us to do is engage with young people across the community from different schools, regardless of where they live at. We also receive a lot of participants that go to JFK Community Center. And what they do is they come to our facility on Friday nights through the summertime, and they get free opportunity to participate in recreational activities, as well as get some leadership courses that we bring in different individuals from the community, some professional athletes, as well as just professionals in the community as well. We also have a STEM program that's a partnership with KC STEM Alliance. This program allows young people to engage in technology. Really, one of our first programs that we had in our YMCA was kicked off at the 8th Street YMCA, and we had, the first team was called Robo Bears, and they actually participated. They took second place. They did a phenomenal job, and this is actually hosted at Central Central Middle School. This is another picture of the STEM camp. You see these young people, they're learning how to really be creative, use their innovative thoughts, and to really just utilize technology in the future. This is another one of my favorite programs, Salsa Sabor y Salud, which is a loose translation in English of Eat Healthy, Be Active. This program allows people, or it's the Latino Hispanic community to come into our facility completely free. They get a 6-week membership where they come and they learn about how to read nutritional facts on the back of food packages and different things like that. And at the end of the program, they have which was another one of my personal favorites, they have a salsa tasting competition, which is amazing. If you've never participated in that, come check us out at the 8th Street Y. This is another just highlight of our community programs. We have the Trunk or Treat, which is around the Halloween time frame. We have the Kids Night Out, which happens on a monthly basis. We have family nights that happen on a monthly basis as well. Have the Kids Day, which is coming up April 25th. We also have health fairs and other senior activities in the community.
So these are the faces of the people you allow us to be able to serve every single day. We're very proud of the work that we do every day to be able to support our community, and we ask your continued support through this next year.
Commissioner Kane.
Thank you, Mayor. Now, we all know I'm not a preacher, but of all the things that are in Wyandotte County, there's nothing more used by the entire community than that facility. I go there 5 or 6 days a week, and one night I made an opportunity for myself because I was late, and I went up and I saw a place full of kids running around, being taught certain things, listening to what was going on. It was so packed and so crowded, even with my stereo stuff on, I could still hear it, and I was laughing the whole time. You go up there, if you're up there around 10 o'clock in the morning or whatever, you see the senior citizens walk out. If you go up there at lunchtime, sometimes it's kind of hard to get on the equipment. And look at how many people across the board are using this facility. And you know, I know sometimes as commissioners we get territorial that we want something in our district. I actually passed the other Y out on Parallel to come down to this Y on Saturday morning, and John's there with me. And the interesting part about it, I could go out there, but I'm used to this one because this is something that's been in the community forever. I started going there in 1971 with Commissioner McCarron's brother. And here's the deal. Nobody likes spending money. And I realize $75,000 is a lot of money. But how much are our senior citizens worth? How much are our kids worth? And look at what's going on. It's nonstop traffic. I don't know anywhere else that those of us from Wyandotte County can use. And like the Legends, we can go out to Legends, everybody else is out there with us. Gordon's there every morning. If you think about how often that's used, and at $75,000 and how many thousands of people use it every day or every week or every year, and the different nationalities that use it, I'd hate to see us not fund it. I'd hate to see us commissioners become territorial over this because it's a lot of money. And I don't know if it's time to make a motion, but I'd like to make a motion that we give them the $75,000.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Commissioner McKiernan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly would agree with what Commissioner Kane just said, and I would also be in support of this motion. But one thing is a little concerning to me. When we first approved this money, and I think it was now 2 years ago, maybe a little bit more, we were in a crisis. It was important to stabilize this in the short term while we developed a plan. And my only concern is that it's taken us longer than I thought it would to develop a plan to replace this Y with a new one that has other funding streams and other funding sources. And so I want to see us move with all due diligence toward creating that plan so that we're not back here next year and the year after and the year after and the year after. But as this does support and feed right into and become an integral part of the Healthy Campus, I do support the motion.
Commissioner Maddox.
Thank you. I also am a member of the YMCA and spent various times there as a youth. But I have an issue with the proposal in its current state, which is the request for $65,000 of casino funds that are delegated to the Parks and Rec Department to be removed and then given to the YMCA. One, because over the past 2 or 3 months, I have visited the Parks and Rec facilities in my district as well as other areas, and there are needs for upgrades. I spoke with various the directors of those gyms, and they're saying we need this, we need that, and often when they mention it to the higher ups in the Parks and Rec department, they're told that there's no revenue available. Well, this seems that would be that stream of revenue, and over 3 years, we have reallocated those funds that would have went to the Parks and Rec department to the YMCA. We did it 2 years straight, and so as Commissioner McKiernan just mentioned, the first year, okay, you know, it was a favor. The second year, you know, I heard various commissioners voice their concerns about going with the plan, and now we're here a third year, and our facilities are constantly declining, but we're taking the funding that would go toward the facilities and we're moving them to the YMCA. And so I have somewhat of an issue with that because I've seen the upgrades that our Parks and Rec department needs, and when I think about the actual proposal that initially went forward was to say that we knew our Parks and Rec department facilities were declining. And so we said we were going to allocate some of those funds from the casino to upgrade them. And now 3 years straight, we've took that funding and we moved it elsewhere. And so for taxpayers who are on the low end of the stick or less fortunate who can't pay for a YMCA membership, that's where they go, to the Parks and Rec department. And so I am a proponent of the Parks and Rec department, and I think we need upgrades. I think Wood Pool needs slides. I think they've asked for that for over 3 to 5 years. $5,000, they haven't been able to get slides. And here we are talking about giving $65,000 to $70,000 again. And so it gives me a little bit of heartburn when we talk about allocating $65,000 to the YMCA when the commissioners were given heartburn about having the appropriation to be able to give $50,000 out to needed groups in their community. And so again, I speak up to that, and I'm a little concerned about it because I thought this was going to be brought to the commissioners before this point, because in the standing committee we discussed bringing it up to the commissioners before.
It was brought to the commissioners before. It was presented before.
Okay. So that's where I stand on it in that moment. So
at standing committee, it was presented to the commissioners. Commissioner Walker.
I think I'm the one that said last year that I wasn't going to vote for this again. And every time I make that kind of a statement, I find myself looking at who you provide services to. And if it were just the lawyers and the bankers and the professionals that went over there to work out at noon, it would be no problem for me to vote to cut off the funding. I will be honest with you that when we voted to approve a plan for a new YMCA, it would have been midsummer, I suppose, after April of 13. I was naively optimistic, I suppose, that we were going to have broken ground and be perhaps even going vertical on that facility by now. And I find it, if I thought this was the decision would be much easier if I thought this was the very last time you were going to come in here and ask for money. Because there is a point at which you have to look at things such as Commissioner Maddox has talked about, because funds we give to you are funds that don't go somewhere else, and there are other needs. The usage and the benefit to the lower income people in Wyandotte County is there. I guess I worry, and I'm worrying out loud as to when we get down the road, when does this subsidy for the 8th Street stop? How much longer before we break ground on a new facility? And then when we do, are we going to continue to be asked for operational assistance? Because your clientele is not going to be any different than it is now. It's going to be mostly the same people in a new facility. Hopefully more people will come and pay full membership, but let's just say the the recipients of the new WISE program are the same ones, you're still going to end up with a shortfall. And I'm not seeing you make any plan that is convincing that you're going to raise the revenue from some source. Or either I'm not convinced, or you're saying it and I'm not hearing it. I mean, I just feel like every year we're going to be given $75,000, $100,000, $125,000 a year to keep this YMCA afloat. If we don't have, unless something changes in this economic dynamic that's driving this Y. No, I don't want to cut off funding for the people that are being serviced. I wouldn't mind cutting it off on Kane. I wouldn't mind, some of the other people that are members up here. That wouldn't bother me one bit, but it bothers me when I look at those children that are benefiting it, and it's going to be very hard for me to say no to this again tonight, and I'll have to eat crow in my words, but this idea that we're going to perpetually supplement the YMCA and downtown Candy is not going to happen. Not going to happen, at least with my vote. I don't want to say I'll never do it again, but we better be moving on this YMCA pretty demonstratively by this time next year.
Commissioner Markley.
So Commissioners Maddox and Walker have done a good job of setting the stage for me. I'm going to bang the same drum that I always do. So it's nothing personal. It's not you. It's always what I say. I think we do a disservice to ourselves and to our taxpayers when we make budget decisions outside of the budget. I think we should be discussing this as part of the budget. Commissioner Maddox's points were on point. We haven't seen the proposal from our Parks and Rec department as far as what they want money for this year. We don't know what they're going to be asking for and what priorities they have. So to take money and give it to someone else without giving our own staff the chance to present to us, to me just seems like inappropriate timing. I would prefer to discuss this as part of the budget. And revised budget, it's going to come up in June and July for for the revised budget for 2015. It's not that they have to wait till 2016, but I just think we need to consider it along with the rest of our budget items, and I think those things that were brought up by Commissioner Maddox and by Commissioner Walker lead me to that same conclusion.
Commissioner Murguia.
Thank you, Mayor. I also would echo what Commissioner Maddox, Markley, and Walker have said. I think this is a proposal that needs to be entertained during our budget cycle. You do great work. There are organizations just like yours that work with kids that cute all over our county. And they don't have the opportunity to bring their proposal forward tonight. Just off the top of my head, I can think of an organization called the Boys and Girls Club. They do a phenomenal job, and yet I don't think, at least in my 8 years up here, they've ever come in front of us and asked us for money, to my knowledge. I just think it sends the wrong message. And for me, it's about fairness and equity. And not that I wouldn't absolutely entertain a proposal that you're submitting tonight. I think the timing could be better. I think the playing field needs to be leveled for everyone. And all those proposals need to be heard at the same time. So that would be my position. Again, nothing against your program. Great pictures, darling kids, lots of organizations with the same thing.
I would just say one of the reasons, and just a little historical perspective, the unified government, to my knowledge, has never contributed to the 8th Street Y. And the reason this began 2 years ago was the Y came to us. The Y actually vetted 5 sites downtown to look to build a new facility, and built a pro forma around a new full-service facility that could serve the whole community. As we looked at that, we took some time to do a master plan around the Y. It's such an important investment as a community center. It's about a $14 million new investment downtown around 10th and State. We're also looking at a new grocery store. Those two combined are about a $30 million capital investment that have an opportunity to really leverage more development downtown. We did delay the fundraising on the Y in order to do a master plan The master plan money was donated to us by the Reach Healthcare Foundation, the Greater Kansas City Health Foundation, and LISC because they saw the merits of the redevelopment opportunity to create a national model for healthy living in an urban area and to leverage that money to really help our struggling downtown to thrive once again. And so the master plan took 9 months from start to finish. We have that plan in place now. We're actively going out to the funders. We have made a number of visits already to the funders. The downtown YMCA project in Kansas City, Missouri, just received approval yesterday from the TIF Commission for $18 million.
16 point.
I'm sorry, $16.9 million for that project. The City Council still needs to approve that. This commission made a matching pledge of $6 million for a new community center that would be run by the Y here in our community. So really the delay in the master planning, I think, has made it a better project. I think it's increased our ability to raise the money for the community center. And this partnership, this financial partnership with the Y on this operating piece with the 8th Street Y has been really a bridge to make sure that we need the base of membership at the 8th Street Y for the new YMCA when it opens, to close the YMCA downtown, and then to 2 years later build a new one, and then to start fresh with new membership would make it very challenging. We would lose a lot of the membership of our business community, we'd lose a lot of the residential community, and we'd have to start from the ground to build up. The best opportunity for the success for our new community center is to keep this 8th Street Y whole while we're moving through the process. But there are timelines on that need to be built, and the money needs to be raised, and so we're actively working on that. I'm very pleased with the progress we're making on the Healthy Campus overall, and you just received that communication a couple of weeks ago about our quarterly update on the Healthy Campus. So my hope is that we will approve this tonight for this bridge fund. It is an unusual arrangement, and it is born out of the larger goal for the Healthy Campus to get us to that point. The other history about why it's outside the budget cycle, which Commissioner Markley I think is a very valid point, it was because the initial ask came 2 years ago in April, and April was the contract date that was set, and so it has rolled on the Aprils for the last 2 years. And so it's more of a historical happenstance that it's happening now than actually intentionally being outside of the budget cycle. So my hope is that we'll go ahead and approve this, and understanding that there are many needs in our community as a bridge to get us to the Healthy Campus from there. Commissioner Markley.
Mayor, I was just going to comment that part of the reason I'm concerned about getting it on the budget cycle is because we do have now a more extended timeline for how long it's going to take to get the new community center in place. And if it's not in the budget cycle this year, they're going to be back here next year off of the budget cycle asking again. I mean, I just want to get them in the cycle so that they're part of our usual.
I think we can pledge certainly this summer, if there's going to be a request, that it needs to be in place for us to consider this summer rather than going around to next April. I think that's a reasonable request to get this teed up on the budget cycle in the event that this ask continues. Commissioner Walker?
I guess you may be suggesting, and we're agreeing, I would be agreeable to what, I don't know what you want to call it, a bridge grant that would get them through the budget cycle, and then consider it inside the budget. And then, you know, in a sense, we're off schedule because this wasn't thought of a couple of 3 years ago when this funding of the Y started.
I'm sure Commissioner Markley was on record then as well.
So I don't disagree with Commissioner Markley at all that it ought to be part of the overall budget, and we ought to consider it. It's no different, better, worse than any of the other proposals. But we've created this off-cycle dynamic, and you know, at some point they need to get through to the point where we can adopt a revised budget and fund them through the end of the year, and then have whatever funding for 16, I guess it would be, that we're going to agree to do.
Okay.
So,
Mayor,
Yes, Commissioner Townsend.
I'm sorry, I did not mean to cut Commissioner Walker off, so let me be quiet until I'm sure that he has completed his entire thought and statement.
I am done, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you. Well, I just wanted to get some clarification on the ask here. On the request memo, we're saying that we're recommending $65,000 from the 2015 general budget, and then $10,000 from the Hollywood Casino grant funding. So we're looking at two pots of money here.
I'll ask Administrator Bach to answer that question.
Commissioner, what's laid out is that last year during the budget cycle, we have the $100,000 that's contributed from the Hollywood Casino funds that they give to us on an annual basis. Initially, I put forward my budget, did not have a recommendation as to fund that. That was a prior direction of the commission that would not be allocated to any sources. During the course of the budget cycle, we opted to put $35,000 additional into some parks and recreation, or into parks for mowing purposes into our parks areas. So that was allocated over to that portion of it. We left the $65,000 unallocated. The directive of the commission at that time was that we'd wait and see if we had something we wanted to allocate it to during the 2015 cycle. We didn't talk specifically about the YMCA, though that is what we had previously used the funding for in previous years. So as we only have $65,000 left in 2015 budget, then we would have to allocate $10,000 from the 2016, and this governing body has not had any discussion on the 2016 money yet. So the 65 was discussed as a commission, and the decision was not to allocate it and leave it open for something that may come about from a Parks and Rec position last year during the budget process. But the $10,000 for 2016 has not been through a budget cycle.
Okay.
And both pots come from what would be the Hollywood Casino grant money that comes back in toward parks and recreational activity in our community.
Would this impact the allocation that we as commissioners will soon be making with the casino grant funding?
No, it is not related to that.
Okay. Well, I have to say that I agree with the comments already made by Commissioners Walker, Markley, Maddox, and Murguia. I would like to see this ask put on the same schedule as the rest of our funding requests. The Y does great work, but as do many others that come before us to ask for requests. And I'm hoping I'm not hearing that in the future this request is going to be perennial until the new Y is built. I thought this was only a bridge for an emergency situation, and got that impression last year and the year before. So I do have some concern, as has already been discussed, that there's no real plan in place for this funding issue for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Maddox.
Thank you. County Administrator Bach, can you give us a mass figure, if this is approved tonight, how much we have approved for the YMCA over the last 3 years that was allocated to Parks and Rec that we reallocated?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure I know that number. I'll look out here to see if my staff, Lou or Jenny, do either one of you have that number? We put $86,000 toward it in last year's contract.
It was $86,000 this last year, and then $120,000 the year before that.
Okay.
Did that all come from parks?
Yeah, it's a 12-month period, so it's not in the calendar year. So this year, 12-month period was $86,000. The 12-month same cycle previously was $120,000.
The $86,000 did come from, and I believe the $120,000 did as well.
Okay.
Came from the grant or the casino money that was allocated, not grant, the casino money that was allocated towards recreational activity in the community.
Okay, so help me with a ballpark figure. Help me with the math. What is that if we approve it tonight? How much is that?
$275,000.
Yeah.
It'd be $275,000 total.
$275,000 in 3 years away from parks and rec facilities.
Commissioner Walters.
I have a question about this information that you distributed, just for clarification. I certainly don't know your economic analysis or your internal procedures regarding membership costs, but I'm looking at the membership, and I'm just adding 1, 2, 3, and 4 districts, and that looks like there's about 14,000 total individuals from those 4 districts. And I'm just sort of thinking that, it wouldn't be a very big increase monthly to cover $75,000 or $65,000 if you have 15,000 people involved. Is that?
I mean, between all the locations?
I'm looking at District 1, District 2, District 3, District 4. It looks like the total individuals involved are about 14,000.
Right. And each one of these are different operating units having its own different operating costs. As an example, there are the other locations that have swimming pools, whereas the H Street Y doesn't. The operating costs associated with some facilities that are much larger and other programming, it's going to cost us a lot more. So if your question that you're asking is whether or not we've got funds that we're able to redirect to support this, we don't.
No, that's not my
your
question at all. Let me try to do this again. I was thinking if you have about 14,000 people that use the Y, and if you increase their fees 60 cents a month, wouldn't that about cover it?
Yeah, the problem right now is that the number of financial assistance that we're giving over the last couple of years has actually been going up. So we've tried to look at adding additional costs for membership right now. It would be very difficult for us to do that. In fact, we're seeing greater need, and we would just be turning around most likely and giving it in terms of financial assistance. So increasing the rates right now is not on our plan for those facilities.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table to approve the funding outlined in the request. Roll call.
Roll call. Markley?
No.
Walters? Philbrook?
Yes.
Walker?
No.
Townsend?
No.
McKiernan?
Yes.
Mugia?
No.
Maddox?
No.
Kane? Yes. The vote is going to be 3-6 and the motion fails.
Can I make a motion that we table this until budget?
Yes. Do you want to? I think the discussion has been, do we want to fund a portion of it to get us through until the budget instead of tabling it all together? And then I guess there would be several options here because it's the will of the commission.
If she's made her motion and got a second, I'm going to make a motion to amend.
Okay, well, let's talk about what we want to do and maybe
But
make one
I
motion.
think it depends on what that number would be.
I will support a motion to carry this over to budget with some bridge money to get them through the budget session. Now, I don't know what that number is because nobody has presented it. And if it's 65, 70, whatever, then clearly something's wrong.
All right.
How much is it?
70. So if you take $75,000 divided by 12, right? That'd be a good start.
6,250.
6,250.
If you did April through August, I believe that'd be about 31,250.
31,250 would get it through the budget cycle, get us to the budget cycle, and then we could vet it out with our other items. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So $31,250 to fund it from April through August, and then we would have our conversation in April to determine long-term plans. Is there a motion?
Will you make that? All right, will you make that motion, or do you want someone else? I will make that motion.
It has been moved and seconded to provide $31,250 to fund the Y for 5 months, April through August, with the intent to get us through the budget and to give the opportunity within the budget cycle for full vetting. I see no further comments. Roll call.
Roll call. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
Maddox.
No.
Kane.
Aye.
The vote is 8-1. That motion passed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to item number 3, a report for recommendation from consolidation for Wyandotte CVB. This has been a conversation that's been going on for about a year and a half. The commission met last fall and discussed this at length. We had a long public hearing. We asked for a study. The administrator went out and found a group to do the study in Springstead, a group we're already familiar with. They completed their study and have submitted it a week ago to all of the commissioners to review. And what I'm going to ask tonight is for Springstead to come forward and offer their presentation. And since we've already had a public hearing on this topic, we're not going to have another public hearing, but we are going to offer each of the 3 affected agencies to make a 5-minute presentation on their reflections on that study. So that'd be the CVB, the Chamber, and WIDEC. So each group will have an opportunity to make a presentation so we can hear from them on their reflection from it, and then we'll open it up to the commission for discussion. Administrator Bach, do you have anything additional?
No, Mayor, I believe you've set this up well. I would recognize Dave Umbach with Springstead Incorporated to present his findings.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the Commission. My name is Dave Unmacht, and I work for Springstead Incorporated, and I'm here tonight to present the findings that are on the screen, and I will do that in a very efficient manner. I think roughly 15 to 20 minutes, I should be able to cover it all. I'm going to walk through the document at a high level, talk about my observations. I was retained by the unified government to help evaluate the consolidation proposal and present policy options. On October 30th, 2014, you had a 2-hour and roughly 9-minute hearing in this chamber on this question. And you were presented with 2 options. Option 1 was really to consolidate. Option 2 was not. The CVB was against it. The unified government decided to wait and take another look at this. This evening, really, you have 2 additional options, but there are 2 components. Option 1 is to not consolidate, take no action, or encourage some collaboration of some level. Option 2 is to consolidate, and that has 2 subsets. Subset 1 is to accept the proposal on the table or ask for a new proposal and go forward. So you really have a continuation of 2 options, but each one has an A and a B, and I'm going to talk through those during the course of my presentation. George, help me. So, okay. So thank you very much. The study section, there's essentially 10 sections. It's about 25 pages. My point tonight, I think, to focus on really is number 3, number 6, and number 9. So I'm going to scroll through the rest of them at a reasonably fair pace, just to make it efficient. The key point in the study introduction is underlined. The only part that's underlined says the study is not evaluation of the service programs or specific work of the 3 entities. No opinion is made or rendered on the success or lack thereof or how each entity is doing their job or carrying out their mission. I think that's an important distinction to make. I'm not rendering an opinion on whether the EDC, the Chamber, or the CVB is successful or not. It's not what I did or what I studied. The study process is right there for you, roughly 15 steps. I believe, and I think based on the work that I do in this business, that the number of interviews we had, the number of people that participated, and many of them are here tonight behind me that represent these different agencies, and some are in front of me, were very participatory. I'd like to thank them for their time and effort, in particular the 2 executive directors, Greg and Bridget, who also responded to some follow-up requests that I had. So people were very passionate, as you know. They really believe in what they believe in. And it was an exciting project, and it was a very good project to be part of. There's an adage, as some of you know, and it's kind of in the architecture, design, and engineering field, that kind of form follows function. And so one of the things that I do when I look for in an analysis, I look for some of the foundational elements, if they're present or not present, to help guide what policy options should be presented, or what policy options, and in fact, may be better than the other. And so as I got into this study, I started to realize that there were some basic questions that weren't answered or weren't there that I wanted to raise with you as part of my analysis. Because if these, in fact, would have been raised, you may have had the ability to make a decision in October, or you would have allowed me to provide a greater analysis in terms of just what is the unified government's position on some of these things. And I'd like to suggest, because they're also a material point within my findings, and because I think they're really relevant. And I won't read all of what I'm going to do, but a couple of these I think are important to point out. The following policy questions are posed to the unified government, the commissioners, to consider in your deliberation of this proposal. And the question, what is the answers to them? And that's something you may decide to address or not. Number one, do you believe that each of these three entities is in fact operating successfully? Are you in a position to evaluate whether or not organizational changes are required simply as a result of their success or lack thereof? And that's an opinion that each one of you may have. The unified government budgets and contracts and authorizes just short of $910,000. Each one you do differently and distinctively, up to obviously the transient guest tax is the significant majority of that, but $200,000 of the Economic Development Committee or Council, and roughly $5,500 plus or minus to the Chamber. So you have a lot invested in that. Do you believe you are obtaining optimal value and the desired outcomes from the financial commitments you are providing individually and collectively? If, hypothetically, one of the answers is yes, then maybe your position on a consolidation is clear. If the answer is no, we're not sure, or no, we're not, then maybe you have another observation about it. Does the unified government, and this is really an important one, does the unified government have an overall vision for economic development of the city and greater Kansas City community? If you had a vision, would that guide you in your consideration of whether or not this option makes sense? Trying to scroll down a little bit, but I don't. Number 5, and last one, presently in a highly competitive environment, regionally, nationally, and internationally, the three entities have a relationship characterized by somewhat mistrust and suspicion, and that's too bad. And it certainly was something that I picked up in my interviews. And it is partly based on the consolidation proposal. So there's essentially 10 questions that are offered in the unified government policy options, and I think they're a material consideration to help you decide whether or not you think it's a good idea or not to consolidate. What are findings? They're just definitions. So if you wanted what I was doing with my 30 particular points, I tried to set it up with a definitional section called What are Findings, and it laid it out very succinctly. Mission statements. Mission statements are often used to support a particular position. It was clear in this particular case as well. People felt that the mission of the CVB was distinctive, the mission of the other two organizations were as well, and that in a consolidation proposal, a mission statement could be compromised. And I point out at the bottom of page 6 that this author, which is me, has done a lot of work in vision and strategy and mission development, goal setting and strategic planning. And I think although missions are essentially important and they should be very viable, it isn't in and of itself a reason not to support a particular policy position. That you could combine mission statements, or in tough environments, i.e. the recession, we saw many local governments change their mission, because the conditions under which they were operating were dramatically different from 2007 to 2012, 2011 timeframe. And so missions were, in fact, adjusted and were different. The next one is really the heart and soul of this summary. There's 30 particular findings. I'm certainly not going to read all of them. They were tried to be succinct. I certainly didn't go back and repeat or provide a significant amount of information on the three entities because you're very well aware of them and you know who they are. But I did for the record because I looked at the two previous studies, the Randall assessment and the Collins, I think it's Notice report, 2008-2010. If in fact at some point in time, there's 5-10 years from now, someone goes back and looks at this particular document, I wanted to make sure that it was succinct and clear of what I was trying to do and how it led me to where I was going in my analysis. Second bullet on this particular page, the question is who's right and who's wrong. And I pondered that a lot in the analysis and in the conversation. Led me to believe, because there isn't a foundational direction that the unified government has in terms of economic development strategy and vision, that I could compare the structure request to. It led me to believe that really there's no clear right or wrong in this issue as you stand here today. The opinions and the passion of each of the two different groups are evident, and they're genuine. Certainly the process and the motivations behind the process were questioned, and you saw that at your hearing on October 30th. But I took certainly the passion and the purpose of the individuals that I met with in a sincere and genuine manner. I don't know how to get back. So I'm going to go the second to last one on page 8, if you're following me. It starts with, there is a common belief across all three entities. And I think this is something you probably know, but I think it's important to state for the record. By all measures, everyone agrees that this particular community, and this is a very positive thing, is a major tourism destination that is continuing to develop. The potential is not quite established or known. However, based on my analysis and based on my interviews and the objectivity I tried to bring to this equation, there is not a common vision, strategy, or direction on how to continue, maintain, and enhance the KCK, such as to maintain it as an emerging national destination. And I think that's important consideration for the unified government, whether you do it on your own or whether you do it in the combination of this discussion of what to do structurally with these three agencies. One of the fundamental principles of each one of these three agencies is they're generally alike. You know, roughly budgetary size, they're equivalent. Roughly staff size, they're equivalent. And they do economic development and they do marketing. They do it differently, and their purpose is different. And I have a quote I'm going to share with you in a few minutes that I thought one of the people I interviewed really captured the essence of these three really well, and I decided to include it. But as you can see through the combination of statistical information that's provided, and this is something you probably already knew, that they're reasonably the same size. The manner in which the unified government provides money is listed here at the top. You do an annual contribution of $200,000 to the one agency. You pay dues of just under $6,000 right now, and you contract the transient guest tax of just over $703,000. And in our document we provided, and thanks to Mike Grimm for his help, we provided the information of what your historical contributions and your transient guest tax amounts were. And it's right there. It's a nice history. One of the items on the bottom of this page that I don't have on the screen, and I think this is a material consideration because it's relevant to what options you want to talk about, is the current relationship between the Chamber and the EDC. There was a word that I had one of the commissioners used in my conversation. The word was synergy. What does synergy mean? You know, what does synergy mean? And the question really becomes kind of an analysis of a relationship. My wife's getting her master's degree in administration. She's a nurse manager at a major hospital in the Twin Cities, and no kidding, 2 days ago we're sitting there, I'm working, she's sitting at the counter, she says, what does synergistic mean? I said, I don't know, but I'm working on synergy with the unified government, you know. But synergy is in place with the Chamber and the EDC. You can just feel it. And how did I define it? The existing strong relationship between the EDC and Chamber, sans, which means without, the CVB is part of the challenge of the two entities already very well connected in practice, operations, and culture, while the CVB is distinct and stands alone. That's just a statement of fact. That's not a judgment. It's not a good, bad, or otherwise. They have a relationship that's clearly intertwined, and the CVB is not today. And that's part of the conversation, and that's part of the analysis that the CVB provided with the consolidation proposal, was it's really 2 against 1. It feels like it's 2 against 1. Staffing is presented as of January of 2015. In all likelihood, that has changed, not dramatically, on the top of page 11, and you see the different staffing positions that are held within each one of the three agencies. Right below that, you see the quote that was provided to me that I thought was very effective. This is one of the people I interviewed. The Chamber supports business-to-business relationships, including the business climate, and this particular interviewer provided legislation as an example. The EDC helps to grow my business, although in a candid moment she said most of the time they're focused on larger business, but that was not a criticism. And finally, 3, the CVB helps bring business to my business, especially from people who I wasn't expecting. I thought she captured the essence of the roles quite well. Much of what I have on page 11 on the bottom is really relevant because it talks about what were the benefits of consolidation. And in this particular document that was presented in summary by the proposers, and all of you have seen that, they lay out some pretty good rationale for the purposes of the consolidation. Then, of course, in the record from October 30th, there is many, many pages of reasons why this isn't a good idea. So you were presented with two particular different sides. The opposition was largely based on, in part, the belief and the perception of what might happen or what has historically happened to CVBs in consolidated proposals. Because they couldn't state it as a fact, they had to state it as an anticipation or what has been done in other places or what could happen if in fact this was consolidated. And I think that's an important distinction. So 2/3 of the way through, I have these noted 20 of 30 findings, and this is an important consideration because those who presented the proposal were clear in stating to me that it wasn't the case, and those who were on the receiving end of the proposal, being the CVB, said in fact it was the case. So the fact of the matter is it was a reality, whether it was true or not, is this notion of takeover. There is a perception that they're trying to take it over. And the people who proposed said that's not true. Those that were on the receiving end said yes, it is. So it is a reality in the conversation, whether or not it's true. And number 21, it's the bottom of this one at the top. This is quite possibly, members of the commission and staff and folks, this is quite possibly the largest driver, based on my assessment of this proposal, is truly a belief on two sides that the organizations aren't operating as optimally as they should, or aren't operating as well or as strong as they should. The CVB to the chamber and the chamber to the CVB. This is a material consideration, as I point out, and I kept going back to this point in my analysis, that part of the reason why this proposal, if not the majority of the reason why this proposal was put forth, is because people perceive that something could be done better. Or people believe that something could be done better. And so that led me to the question of, what do you believe? Do you believe they could be done better in a consolidation, or do you believe they're operating optimally now, and that might lead you to a conclusion of what you think ought to happen? And that's where those policy questions started coming back. What's the vision of this unified government economic development? What are your strategies in economic development? Because if you had those, I could compare that to structure, and it could lead to an easier conclusion. Because that foundation isn't there, you have two policy options without context. And that's what you were faced in October, and that is why, with opposition, it became a hard conversation to have. And it's still a hard conversation to have because those answers aren't there. If they are there, it really does make it easier. There's a question of cost savings, and this is 23 in the bottom of 12. I truly believe, based on my work and based on my history, that you in fact would find cost savings in a consolidation. It just would happen. How much is debatable, how much needs to be determined, and you may not know for a year or two or three. Oftentimes, to combine organizations, you have a startup cost. You have to invest to consolidate. So you're going to spend money to make money, if you will. How much can only be determined in an implementation plan. But at the end of the day, because there's commonalities in organization, in program, and administration, you will have savings. To what degree, it's hard to say. But I think you can assume that there would be, in fact, some savings. I think I'll stop there on findings and continue on and wrap up here in a few minutes, Mayor. Financial analysis was really a summary and an aggregation of the information presented to us in budgets in 2014 and 2015. So I'll go to the last page of the financial consideration because it just pointed out what I was talking about in terms of cost savings. But what we tried to show here, we took the data that was provided by the three entities and we presented it, the Chamber, the EDC, and the CVB, and you can just see in the report the revenues, where they're from, and the expenses and where they go. We thought this would help you understand the makeup of each of the two, and we did it for 2014 and we did it for 2015. Consolidated financials. This is the using the base document that was provided to us, and it is this document. We use this particular piece that was presented as a possibility or a proposal for consideration. And the CVB did not endorse it, so we can't use it as authentic or authenticated because they didn't support it or they didn't contribute toward it. So we're using it as supposition, or we're using it as possibility or potential, just to present what was put out there. So the net savings based on changes in revenue and changes in expenditures was proposed by the proposers up to $233,000. In all likelihood, it would be something, around there, in between, or less than that. The question of what level of cost savings would be the unified government, what is material consideration for you? The transient guest tax money, you contract, you always will to someone in all likelihood. The chamber dues are $6,000. It's money, it's taxpayers' money, but it's a small amount of money for chamber dues. And the amount of money you contribute to the EDC went up recently to $200,000. So what is a material consideration to you for a consolidation proposal that you'd like to see that would be a net difference to make it worthwhile? That's the question. Best practices in organizational design, I won't go through these. These are offered to suggest that if you want to evaluate this consolidation proposal without the foundation upon economic development, then another option is look at what best practices are. And you can compare and contrast this proposal to certain best practices. So you have really 3 sections here on this page. What will we accomplish? Some things to think about, some things to avoid, and reasons why. And that's identified on that page. Almost to the end. Policy options, briefly, I just want to walk through those. And then the end is just study author observations. I'll make a couple comments about those, and I'll stand for questions and discussion. Option 1, do not consolidate. As option 1A, take no action. That means just let the course of the community go forward. It doesn't mean that, I don't think it means that you do nothing, literally, because I think that you have some communication or you have some leverage of some type, financially and otherwise, to say to these organizations, the present relationships aren't as strong as they need to be, and so we need to do something about that. And secondly, in this option, I think it would be a good idea to go back to the original policy questions and say, what is our opinion about these? What is our perspective about these basic questions about economic development? And over the course of the next few months or over the course of the year, then in fact you could address those or maybe come up with some answers. Option 1B, develop a strong collaborative model. Now, clear in testimony, some of the people that I interviewed said it won't work, because it hasn't worked to date, and people are, believe that. And my suggestion, I still think it's a very viable model. Why won't it work? And I went back and looked at some of the mission statements. The mission of the EDC, if you look at the mission statement of the EDC, is to work with partners. So you go right back to the core elements of what they do. And everybody knows in order for this community to retain, maintain, and succeed successfully in an international competition, we need these 3 entities to be working at high altitude and high optimal partnerships. And so that the unified government would be able to, through leverage, through your authority, through your financial contributions, to say, listen, we'll give you 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. Come back to us and let's look at how we do our marketing, how we do our administration, how we do our programming, and come back with a plan and present it to us at one of these board meetings, and let's see how it's done. Option 2, call for consolidation. There's really 2. Option A, support the proposal on the table. A lot of work has been done already. People behind me have invested a lot of time and energy in that proposal. Obviously it's been challenged. It's got some issues. One of the things that it doesn't have, to no one's credit or blame, is details. And that's one of the reasons why it was subject to so much criticism, is because it was largely conceptual. Because the details weren't worked out yet. They needed to be done. So you have that foundation. The benefits are already there. The benefits are going to be there in A or B in this particular option. So let's just move forward with what we have on the table. I would suggest, as you see in this paper, that the unified government would want to weigh in on some of those questions and criticisms that have been raised, or some of the fears and concerns, because you want to do something about those or avoid those from happening. And finally, option 2B, introduce a new consolidation process. The reality is you don't entirely start over. you know, because you've already started talking about what the benefits are, but you have an image, and if I may, because you have an image, and I'll hold it up again, of the PowerPoint, and that image is what people believe it is. And so start over. If you believe that it doesn't matter what one of the three entities believes, whether it's this chamber, the CVB, or the EDC, it happens to be the CVB here, it doesn't matter what one of the three think, or even two of the three think. If consolidating is the right idea, then go forward and do it. And in a few years, or 5 years, or 10 years, it'll just be history. But if you believe that in a voluntary consolidation with some uncertain strategy and uncertain vision, and no crisis and no emergency, that all three entities need to be on an equal playing field, but you want to consolidate, then start over. Then introduce a new consolidation idea and have the unified government vested in it through your resources and through your people and through your commission, to be part of it, to lead it. And in addition to that, and finally on this particular option, and I say this at the bottom, I said, don't let past practice dictate future performance. So those that have experienced it, or those that are critical of it, or those that are judging it in advance of it happening, are saying, this is what's going to happen. The CVB loses its interest, the marketing goes away, the chamber membership becomes the most important thing. All of those historical or perceptions, get out ahead of them and present a consolidation proposal that avoids that outcome. And then finally, study author observations. I have a page and just a quarter of those, and I'll just talk about the one, and I can go through any one of them, but just to be succinct, the fourth one that's shown up on this. The unified government is put in a position to pick and choose from options that lack consensus. And again, depending upon your position, that may or may not matter, but it's a fact. Given the political dynamics and the positions, the unified government may want to pause to reset or establish your vision for economic development. Thus, the vision could drive the structure question. In the meantime, pursuing a new collaborative model is more than status quo or doing nothing. So at the end of the day, it certainly seems to me that you have viable options to move forward and things you could do short of consolidation, or if you do want to pursue consolidation, you also have an option that doesn't necessarily endorse the proposal on October 30th, 2014, but it may introduce a new idea. Mayor, members of the commission, thank you. I'll stand for questions or discussion or.
Thank you. What I'd like to do is, my suggestion is that we go ahead and hear from the three other entities, and then I'll open it up for the commission for questions and discussion. So I decided we would go in alphabetical order, and I think chamber comes before convention. So chambers first, convention, I think W's are at the end. So WYDEC will go last. So chamber, CVB, and then WYDEC.
Great, thank you very much. My name is Greg Cotton. I'm the Chief of Staff and General Counsel for Sporting Kansas City, and I stand in front of you today as the chairman of the Greater Kansas City, Kansas Area Chamber of Commerce. And I'd like to recognize a few of my board members here today: Todd LaSala from Stinson Leonard Street, Craig Gaffney from Country Club Bank, Rachel Merlot's here from Google, Pat Warren's here from the Speedway. Am I missing anybody? Nolan Dees from our staff. Thank you all very much for being here. I think when we first read this report, the first word that came to my mind, quite honestly, was historic. And the reason I say that is when I'm thinking, if I'm looking back 18 years ago when this community came together and unified around a county and a city government to do something incredibly unique in this community, you have the exact same opportunity to do that right now with three very strong civic organizations, all of which are financially viable and solvent. And yes, that does include the chamber, despite what you hear. We, under the leadership of Greg Kindle at the EDC over the past 18 months to 20 months, the chamber is in a very financially viable situation. We do not need this money to operate as a chamber of commerce. We do not need this money to operate as a chamber of commerce. In fact, we couldn't use this money, as you know, statutorily. We couldn't use the money. And so reading the report, there was a lot of redundant information in there, and I think the thing that shone through to me and to my fellow board members was passion. There are a lot of us that are willing to do a lot of hard work right now for you and for this community. And we want to present to you, and we want to present to the rest of Kansas City, the rest of the state of Kansas, the rest of this country, and internationally, a strong, united, efficient, thoughtful marketing arm for this community. We want to work for you, we want to be your marketing arm, and we want to be your evangelists. And when 2 years ago, when we tried to reimagine what this chamber could be, we realized that we couldn't do this alone. There were organizations within this community, civic organizations, that were doing it better than the chamber. Just to be brutally honest, the EDC is the greatest example of that. Incredibly well-run organization, great leadership, and quite frankly, 2.5 years ago, we didn't have that at the chamber. And so we took some very, very difficult steps, and we moved forward with this proposal to you in order to do something that we believe is going to be important for this community moving forward. You know, I don't want to take up too much of your time. You've read this report, you've heard from us, you've heard our 600-plus members that represent the best and the brightest of this community and across Kansas City, those doing business in this community. But we believe it's time to go big or go home. And this council today has, if they have the ability, the courage, the conviction to do something like happened 18 years ago in this community, give us the opportunity, and we won't let you down. All you have to do to understand what we are likely to do, what we're able to do as a unified entity, as hopefully all of you were at the chamber annual meeting the other day. And I see a lot of you were. The collateral materials that were produced there, the videos that were produced there, the pride, the passion, the joy that was in that room celebrating our community was outstanding. And that's what you're going to get with a unified entity. So I would ask you to give us that chance to do that. Okay, great. Well, I won't use it. I'll cede to the right honorable gentleman from the EDC or whoever's next. Thank you very much.
CVB, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bridget Jobe, and I am the Executive Director of the Kansas City, Kansas Convention and Visitors Bureau, and I am speaking on behalf of the Kansas City, Kansas Convention and Visitors Bureau Board of Directors. The CVB Board of Directors believe that the current structure of the CVB as an independent, singularly focused professional marketing entity with its strong board leadership provides the best impact for Kansas City, Kansas. We also believe that there is great opportunity for collaboration and synergy between the CVB, the Chamber, and Wyandotte EDC, collaboration that is not currently happening. It is a challenge, I will be honest, to collaborate with organizations that for the last year and a half have mounted efforts to discredit us and, in their own words, take away our funding. Throughout the consolidation talks process, the CVB has offered collaborative ideas to the Chamber and EDC in 2 separate letters and in various meetings. To date, we've not received a response. Since the formation of the CVB in 2010, we have held a seat on our board for the Chamber Chair or their designee. We have suggested that the directors or presidents of each of the 3 organizations begin meeting on a regular basis to discuss projects, marketing efforts, and future plans. The CVB board included $12,500 in our 2015 budget to help pioneer a joint branding effort. We believe these ideas are just scratching the surface, but it shows we are ready and willing to start the dialogue. There was a comment made on page 22 of the study that said the best reason why collaboration won't work is because it hasn't to date, and I'm going to be honest, we don't get that way of thinking. If that attitude and that belief was one that this commission held, then the majority of the recent development and growth that has taken place in our city would have never happened. The CVB board made a conscious decision through this process to not tear down or discredit the work of the Chamber and the EDC. We believe both of those organizations are vital components to the business and economic growth of our community. We purposely did not attempt to discredit their performance or their materials. We want them to be successful. There have been comments throughout this process about the underpinning of motives for the separation in 2010, when the UG Commission chose to make a change and set up the CVB as an independent entity. I'm going to respond to that because it is personal. When that change happened, yes, there were awkward times. Change is hard. But the awkward times came as a result of the separation, not caused the separation. That is a very important distinction and one that has been misrepresented. Those of us involved in that process during and after the change continued to work together. We acted professional towards each other. We served on boards and committees, and most importantly, we collaborated on several projects. On page 19 of the study, consolidated financials were presented. Those financials were created by the entities who support consolidation. Those were not numbers from the CVB. We strongly question their validity, and we believe any savings of a consolidated organization is minimal and very likely could be detrimental to the mission and outcomes of the CVB. There is mention in this report of strong personalities, and yes, that is correct. There are some strong personalities on this CVB. I know I am one of them, and I know there are others on this board. But with those strong personalities comes passion, commitment, experience, tourism knowledge, and a solid belief in the work of this CVB and the value that it brings to this community. This CVB took a stand on consolidation. We took an unpopular stand. We could have taken the easy way out and bowed to smooth talk and intimidation. We took the hard road. We stood up for what we believe is best for the long-term growth of this community. And that is what you as a commission want. You want a strong chamber voice, a strong EDC voice, and a strong CVB voice. And sometimes we will fall on different sides of the issue, and that is good. With 3 strong entities, you will hear all sides and all points of view, and that is how good decisions are made. If you choose to consolidate, you will hear one voice, and we wonder whose voice that will be.
Your time is up, ma'am.
It's up. We understand the real issue is transient guest tax. If it was about collaboration and synergy, they would have proposed consolidating with every other organization in this community that works with economic development or community development. That's not the case here. The interest is our funding source. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Wyandotte.
Good evening. I'm Margaret Bowker with J.E. Dunn Construction, and I currently serve on the executive board and as past president of the Wyandotte EDC. Tonight we have with us our president, Greg Kendall, who many of you know, and we have several of our members here in the audience today, including the Kansas Speedway, Country Club Bank, and others. Consolidation is something that came about a couple of years ago. As you know, it's been extremely difficult to operate in a business environment in the last 5 years. And a lot of our companies in the audience, a lot of the companies that you represent, have been forced to practice more efficiently and adhere to leading principles when structuring their organizations. As such, over the past 2 years, we noticed a lot of inefficiencies that may have been occurring between the 3 organizations, redundant positions, redundant missions, and a lot of redundancy amongst the 3 entities. With that, we thought, would we be stronger as one organization? Would we be stronger to our membership who are members of all 3 organizations, or at least 2, and may have board members on the CVB? That's where we began studying the chamber, the Wyandotte EDC, and looking to the CVB. With that, our intentions were strong, they were good. It's how do we leverage our community to take full advantage of the opportunities that are presented to us in both the business environment and in the Convention and Visitors Bureau. We all benefit with stronger hotels. We all benefit with stronger businesses that are coming into the community and businesses that are growing, and we all benefit from an economic environment that supports and grows our businesses. With that, our board does support consolidation. We hope that you will too. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, to give a little structure to tonight, there are a lot of colorful phrases that describe this, but I will choose. It's time to fish or cut bait. So we're going to entertain a motion, and then we'll vote it up or down. And we've seen the options that have been presented: either don't consolidate or do consolidate. If we choose one of those, we have some options within them that we can talk through. And so that's where we stand. The other piece is talking to our legal team. We don't have actually the authority to tell these three independent organizations you must consolidate. That's not within our purview. The Chamber of Commerce is independent. We do provide funding for the other two. We provide the vast majority of the funding for the CVB, and we provide about half the funding for the Wyandotte Economic Development. What we can do is we can direct our county administrator as part of the 2016 budget to combine UG funding and direct it to a single entity, which we believe can best perform the various functions of the three together. And those functions would be driven by our relationship to EDC and the CVB. If the Chamber of Commerce chooses to join, that would be their decision. But in terms of the ones that we have financial ownership in, then it would be us choosing to direct our funding between the two. So that's our task tonight. And I'll lead off tonight. I just want to say a few things. I think these are three great organizations with great people in them. And this has been, I can assure you, on the campaign trail as mayor, consolidation of these three entities was not something that had ever crossed my mind, or something that I had considered. This was a proposal that was brought to this commission by two of the three organizations that they saw an opportunity. And so that's why we're here today. It was the initiative of the boards of these groups looking around, feeling like they could do something new. And so I will say I've listened to all the arguments. I have not relished the challenge of this decision. But I would say at the end of the day, I would supporting one organization rather than two. And I say two because, again, the chamber is independent. If it wanted to join, that would be the decision of that board. But I believe our economic development and our Convention and Visitors Bureau could function better together. And I'll give these reasons. Cost savings are not necessarily the driving force for me. It's not as though we have $900,000 in these and we need to pull back X amount of dollars, and so therefore we need a consolidated function to save money. My hope is that we would continue to invest fully as we are in both organizations, and that any cost savings through centralizing operations and redundancies would be driven back into more marketing and would be driven back into more economic development, not less. I'm not interested in an opportunity to take money away from these functions, but actually to leverage more. I think there are some redundancies with event planning, administration, and marketing that could be done better. I also think there is a huge interplay, synergy if you will, between tourism and economic development. Tourism, we did economic development to bring tourism. Tourism brings economic development. It's two sides of the same coin. I think they are critically important to one another, and I think that leveraging the opportunities, the project we just approved tonight from U.S. Soccer, for me, my interest in U.S. Soccer, it's not a ton of jobs that are coming to our community, but it's the opportunity to bring additional tourism to our tourist industry. And so when I think of an economic development and a willingness to spend money as a unified government, it's driven by the idea that I want additional tourists. Sly James has a phrase that he uses often, OPM, other people's money. And the more other people's money that we bring to our community, that continues to drive economic development. And so for me, there's a strong interplay between those two that I believe could perhaps be done stronger. I do think there is possibilities for collaboration. I just know collaboration with multiple entities is harder in my mind than it is with a single entity. And so that's where my view is coming from. Finally, my biggest issue is an issue of branding and image for Kansas City, Kansas, Wyandotte County. I want a unified brand, a unified vision, a unified message about who we are and what we are. And I believe the marketing money we spend on that translates easily to business attraction and business retention, and it translates to tourism. Obviously, you have to nuance the different aspects of it to specifically target. Targeting a company to come build manufacturing is a different group than targeting moms to bring their families here to spend the weekend. At the same time, the materials that we develop can be used for both, because at the end of the day, if a business is coming here, they want to come to a community that has amenities for the families as well. And I will say, in addition to all the tourists we have out in Kansas City, Kansas, the people in Wyandotte County often get to take advantage of those as well. And my last piece on this image and branding and cooperation. As I've talked to people around the metro area, Kansas City, Missouri has 3 big organizations. They have a convention visitors organization, they have the Greater Kansas City Economic Development Area, KCADC, and they have the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce. All 3 of these are big, and they're all high functioning, they're all doing fine. They all 3 have a different brand, they all 3 have a different image, and if you ask people for all the success they're having, a lot of their success is independent. It's not necessarily coordinated with one another. And then the city of Kansas City, Missouri has its 4th brand. You may have seen that they rolled out a new brand logo for Kansas City that is the city's logo. So you have the city, you have the CVB, you have the economic development, you have the chamber, all with their own branding. I don't think that's a good idea. And I think we could unify our branding as a city, market ourselves better, and do it. I do agree. I don't think there's any emergency. I don't think that the groups are doing badly. And I mean, if they were doing badly, presumably they would have already heard from us because we have members on the boards. I think it's an opportunity that was brought to our attention by 2 groups that I just happen to agree with. And I think if we're going to do it, the time is now. If we're not going to do it, let's vote tonight and move on with our lives. But I think we've given this a due hearing. I think we've heard from everybody, and I think it is time to make a decision and to be ready to move forward. So I present that. I will open it up for other commissioners who would like to speak at this time. Commissioner McKiernan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This certainly is an issue that we have spent what seems like an inordinate amount of time on over the past several months. I think there is certainly a lot of passion from everyone involved. There's been a lot of hard work from everyone involved, which I must appreciate. Because of the passion that was on display in October, I said, I'd like somebody who doesn't have a dog in this fight to give me a third-party perspective. Mr. Unmocked, we thank you for your report, and as I prepared for this meeting, I read it over several times, and I kept coming back to the second to the last page where you had your study author observations. And these are some of the observations you made that have stuck with me as I have read that page. Can a consolidation happen under the right circumstance? Yes. Is there an overwhelming, compelling reason, in a practical sense? Likely not. Then this finding, given the set of facts and findings, collaboration seems like the next best step. It is absolutely possible to collaborate and still succeed while operating independently. Then this finding, the UG may want to pause to reset or establish your vision for economic development. I would suggest it's broader than economic development. It is all of these other things that the mayor has just said as well. Thus, the vision then could drive the structure question. In the meantime, pursuing a new collaborative model is more than status quo or doing nothing. And finally, this one caught my eye. The marketplace of other comparable entities does not indicate that merging or consolidation is a trend or best practice for the industry. And so as I am here today, I have to say that I am leaning toward what I believe you had as your option 1B. I don't believe we've been as clear as we could be on our directions that we give to these three organizations about what we want to accomplish, how we would like to accomplish that. I don't think that we're leveraging our $900,000 investment as well as we probably could. So this is not in the form of any sort of emotion. I'm just sharing what I'm thinking right now today is that the collaboration model, and all this does, I understand, is it kicks this can down the road for another year, and we have to keep thinking about this, and ultimately it's going to force us to make some sort of a decision more than I would suggest we make tonight. But what if we pursued the collaboration model? We've heard, oh yes, we can collaborate. Well, put up or shut up. Let me see some evidence of this ability we have to collaborate. If we give clear and specific instruction and vision, let's make it happen. So what if we did this? What if we maintained the funding as it is for the remainder of the current contract with the CVB? Now, I understand that we'd have to rescind our termination letter for the end of 2015. But what if we did that? And what if we followed Mr. Unmock's suggestion and sharpened our focus as to what we expect? And what if we established and communicated objective measures to each of the three organizations that we believe would demonstrate collaboration is happening? And that would be collaborative branding, collaborative marketing, collaborative promotion, collaborative everything. What if we ask them to identify and work cooperatively to eliminate redundancies and overlaps? They've identified them. Can we collaboratively and cooperatively eliminate them? What if we establish new metrics for measuring tourism and visitors? Frankly, I have never thought, and I'm on record as saying this, I don't think that hotel nights by itself is the metric on which we should say, yes, we're winning, or no, we're not. There are other metrics out there. I believe we collaboratively and cooperatively need to create those metrics and then ask, are we doing as well as we could? And then, having given the vision and created the objective metrics, give our administrator effectively the charge to conduct, and here's the can down the road piece, a review at the end of 2015 or early 2016. Since the existing contract ends at the end of 16, if we haven't made progress by then, well, you know what? We're going to collaborate. And if we have made progress by then we've made progress, and maybe there is no continuing, pressing, urgent need. So those are my thoughts as I sit here tonight, having spent a lot of thought energy on this. I am leaning toward your option 1B.
Commissioner Kane.
Okay, I like the idea of fish or cut bait, and I don't mind cutting bait. You know, for the audience, each commissioner met with the chamber. They came in and showed us this chart, and this grandiose chart, and they were going to be in charge. And they were putting a strong personality in a very awkward position, which would be a hostile takeover in my mind. And I like hostile. You know, I like it where you got a strong personality and people are looking at you because they want you to make a decision. Because what I thought we were asking you to do was say yes or no. We combine them, we don't combine them. And I'm kind of disappointed that we don't have it just flat out, no, don't do it or do it. You know, a comment was made about you didn't have leadership 2.5 years ago at the chamber. I disagree. Cindy Cass is an outstanding lady and did a really good job. And for you to make that comment, you should call her and apologize. And Mr. Kendall does a great job, always has. The guy's gone all the time. He's never home. I live right down the street from him. But I'm not sure if you want to combine Greg and Bridget and the chamber and not let those personalities grow. Because what you're going to do if you combine them, then they're stuck. And then you've got three leaders and no chief. And I think we operate better when we're separated. You know, because it was said earlier that the chamber hasn't always been our friend when it comes to some of the things at the unified government. That's a fact. You guys should support stuff in Topeka that has wholeheartedly hurt this community. And don't let anybody forget you because you've done it, and I can tell you what it is. But here's the deal. I don't think we should combine them. I think they're fine the way they are. I think that Greg and Bridget do a good job, and obviously you're running the show now, and I don't know you. But I do not want to consolidate them and then make the other ones that are doing a really good job not grow.
All right, I don't see anyone else chiming in to wade into the 4A. So I think just in an effort to move us down a path, because we just need a path, and we'll vote it up or down. I just got a light. All right. I was. Commissioner Philbrook.
Well, kind of was. Okay, so, oops, sorry. Hit it again, boss. Thank you. I agree with Commissioner McKiernan. There has been a lot of talk about we can collaborate. So, as the words would be fish or cut bait, show us. Show us if you can collaborate. And it's up to us to give you some goals to work toward, to see what, so you know what we want from you. We have been very derelict of duty. We have really not made ourselves clear from up here as what we want you to do. So it's just as much our fault as anybody else. And so I'm willing to take that responsibility on. And I'd love to be part of this collaboration. And I'd like to see it happen because I know it can happen. It's just you have to want it to. You have to want to work together and really make something out of this community. Everybody says they love the community, they want it to make it work. So let's see it happen. And so I'm along with him. I'm on option 1B.
All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to make this motion, and we can vote it up or down. If someone wants to, if no one seconds it, that will be one answer. And then we'll move on from there. We'll make a motion. We can still talk about it, and I won't cut off discussion. I'll move that we direct the county administrator as part of the 2016 budget to combine UG funding and direct it to a single entity that can best perform the various functions currently divided between the CVB and the EDC. Is there a second? All right, we've answered one question, right? So, is there a, we have just decided we will not consolidate these two organizations. And we've given ourselves a lot of, all right. So, Commissioner Walker.
The only thing I would say is that I'm not ready to consolidate into second dimension there. I am not opposed to it. You know, we've been talking this for a year, and I've been getting hammered from both sides, all three sides, and they all contradict each other. And somebody wrote a letter and nobody contacted me, and consolidation was good for the government, but it's not good for this. I mean, what ought to be evident to everyone in the room and everyone on this table is that these three groups are dysfunctional. I mean, you know, dysfunctional families. Well, we've got a dysfunctional family here, and I'm all in favor of giving. If it had been my job involved in this as the leader of one of these three, obviously the chamber wouldn't be included in that. The other two, I've been working my tail off trying to get together with the other people and come up with a solution that could be jointly presented to us and sold. And I'm not getting a sense there's any kumbaya between any of these people. This is all about turf, who's going to get it, whose money it is. I I mean, that's not what we want here. We want tourism to prosper, but I think tourism is a very difficult measurement to make. Hotel rooms does not do it for me. You know, you have a certain number of events. Certainly our hotel rooms are going to go up once U.S. Soccer comes into town. That's got nothing to do with the Convention and Tourism Bureau. It's just a matter of fact that there's going to be more people from out of town. And they're going to stay somewhere whether we have a CVB or not. Economic development, the same thing. I mean, I don't always know what has been brought to the table by our economic development wing. I just know that if you pool these resources and work together, you're probably better off. But at the same time, pulling these two groups together, or these three groups together right now, I can't imagine what's good's going to come from it unless we define the criteria that we expect, and if they don't meet it, then we consolidate them. I think consolidation of governmental entities was a good thing, and I don't see any imperative that would suggest it wouldn't be good here. It's just that under the present circumstances, I don't think it's going to work without major changes in each other's attitude towards each other. If they don't want to sit down and collaborate, a year from now, I'll vote to consolidate them and then decide which one goes.
Commissioner Kane.
Okay. Commissioner McCarron, were you trying to make a motion earlier, or what were you trying to do?
I was as much trying to clear my own head as make a motion, but I would make a motion that we follow from the report, option 1B. The specifics of that I don't have clear. Option 1B is develop a stronger collaborative model, but with the stipulation that if that collaboration is not evident within a certain period of time, then a consolidation is the after effect of that. A chance to demonstrate that collaboration is possible. If it's not demonstrated, then we're changing course, is where I would go. And I don't know how to operationalize that into a motion at the moment.
But if I could make a suggestion, if we are going to call for collaboration, I think what would probably be most fitting is to, and I can think about this and do this. There are several parties here who are interested in this. I can assign a group of 3 or 4 commissioners who want to come up with those criteria and outline that process, and to draw it up and give that direction to the 2 entities that we fund in terms of what that's going to look like. And so that would be a recommendation we do. I don't know that we need a motion not to do something, because we had the motion to do something and it didn't go anywhere. So there's no
Okay,
movement.
I'll make a motion then. You know, in 2010, all 3 parties came to us and said, you know what, this isn't working. We want to go, and boy, they had a party. They were glad to get rid of Bridget and throw everybody to the curb and say, here we are. So I make a motion that we do not combine the 3 entities.
Okay, I would suggest that I think that sentiment has already been expressed by the commission, because the motion to combine failed and they're already not combined. So I don't know that we need a motion to not do that. I would just make the suggestion that we form a task force of commissioners to draft this up. Now, I don't think we need a motion to do that. Unless you want a motion to do that, then we can do that.
I think there is action. The action is still there. We're not saying we're not going to do anything, because as the study said, the status quo is not what we want. We're saying we are going to do something. It's just not going to be combining them.
So, Commissioner Kane, is your motion then for us to set up a task force of commissioners for collaboration, or is yours to do nothing?
I don't want to do nothing.
You want to do nothing?
I want to leave them alone.
Okay, so your vote is 1A, the other is 1B. Okay, so we do need a motion. Your motion is 1A, do nothing. Just leave them alone.
Correct.
Go back to sleep. Right.
Right.
All right. That's motion on the table. Is there a second for 1A to do nothing and forget all about this? All right, we're 0 for 2 with motions tonight. So now we, is there a motion for 1B, which is a higher collaboration with a task force of commissioners to articulate what that would be?
I move for 1B.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Roll call. Oh, up. But before roll call, Commissioner Murguia.
So just for clarity, repeat 1B again.
Mr. Bach, can you read that for us?
Certainly. And I believe Commissioner McKernan might have tweaked it a little bit, but 1B, as it's noted in the document, states, create a business model that requires the three entities to strengthen their partnership and collaborative efforts. Each entity is involved in economic development, marketing, operations, and other administrative functions. The CVB is on record supporting these discussions and is open to moving forward toward a more cohesive and strategic shared direction. Identify policy parameters and request the three entities to develop a model and return to the board with their plan in an agreed-upon timeframe.
And I would say that the mayor's suggestion of a task force does follow what I was going to suggest was, and that last sentence for me is the key sentence, identify policy parameters and request the three entities. Now we tweak that a little bit with task force participation to develop the model and return to the board with their plan in an agreed-upon time frame.
So my question is this. Do we have the legal right to demand that they do that?
Yes.
The question is, I thought the only decision we make is whether we're going to fund CVB or not. I thought the only question, what we could do is say, there's a criteria if you want this money, and this is what the criteria is, but that doesn't have anything to do with the vote. So I guess, are we in charge of these people, these organizations, where we can tell them what to do?
We are in charge of the money that funds these organizations, and we can set criteria about how we want that money spent. And yes, and if that's not met, then we have the authority to withhold the money and assign it to a group that does meet the criteria.
I get that. So that's why I asked the reading of the motion. The reading of the motion doesn't say that. The reading of the motion says dictating to people, these groups, what they need to do. I think it would be clear to everybody is that in this situation, we are like a funder. We establish a criteria, you meet the criteria, you get the money. You don't meet the criteria, you don't get it.
Correct.
The question tonight is, are we going to continue? I really don't know what the question is, to tell you the truth. Because we don't have, from what I've talked to legal about and heard legal say, we don't really have the right to do what we're trying to do. So I would need more clarity on the motion before I'm comfortable abstaining, before I'm comfortable voting, or I would abstain.
I'd ask for the legal opinion. What happens with an abstention?
Be counted as the majority, with the
It
majority.
would be counted with the majority. Commissioner Kane.
Wow. All we're doing is kicking the can down the street. You know, when it's all said and done, I'm not going to change in the next 6 months. I don't think the folks out there are going to change in the next 6 months. So 6 months, we're going to be standing here and we're going to go, well, what do we do now? You know, I think it's fairly simple that it's not working. I don't see that it's going to change in 6 months. And what guidelines do we tell them what to change to? Because we don't know what their jobs are. I don't have a clue what they do. All I know is the numbers look good, and this guy ain't never home. You know, I mean, look at it. And you're standing there, and we're saying, how long have we been going through this?
Oh, mercy, at least 12 years. 12 months.
And think about it, you're out here, it's affecting you. So every day you get up and you go to work, and you're not sure what's going to happen in the next couple of months. Boy, does that make you feel like you want to go to work? Commissioners, if this was happening to you, you would not like it. That we owe these people an answer, and we owe them an answer tonight.
Commissioner Kane and I agree on that last point, just in opposite directions. All right, Commissioner Walker.
No, I don't want to say anymore.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on the table. The motion is 1B for criteria to be drafted. Oh my gosh, McKiernan, go.
I withdraw my motion.
Call for the question. Oh,
Ruh-roh.
good Lord.
Yes, I am.
Do you withdraw your second? The second is withdrawn. There is no motion on the table.
I'd like to make a motion that we leave. No, I'm not ready to adjourn. I am ready to adjourn. I'd like to make a motion that we leave them the way they are and let them do their job.
Second.
Call for the question.
Roll
Second.
call. Roll call. Not on the question, just on the motion.
Roll call, Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Is that an aye? Yes. Philbrook.
Oh, aye.
Walker.
No.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Abstaining.
Maddox. Kane. The vote is 8-1. That motion carries.
All right. We are now adjourned as the Board of Commissioners, and we are reconvened as the Land Bank Board of Trustees. We have items on the consent agenda. Everything is on the consent agenda from previous action. I would
Move to
ask
approve
now
all items on consent agenda.
if anyone in the audience or a commissioner would like to remove any item that is currently on the consent agenda. If you would like to remove an item, please come forward at this time. If you would not like to remove an item, everything will be approved by the recommendation as stated in the piece. It's been moved, and I'll take yours, Mr. Kane, as a second. Yes, I'd recognize the microphone. What item would you like to withdraw from the consent agenda?
Item B.
Item B will be withdrawn. That leaves item A. Are there any other items that anyone would like to withdraw? Let the record show no further items have been withdrawn. Roll call on the consent agenda.
Roll call, Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
Maddox.
Aye.
Kane. Vote is 9-0. That motion carries.
All right, that brings us to the items that have been removed. Item B, I would ask to begin for Mr. Slaughter to come forward first to make presentation by staff. After his presentation, I will open up the public hearing, and following that, I'll take commission questions.
Thank you. Good evening. We were asked 2 weeks ago to hold off 3 applications from New Bethel Church. Those addresses are 1700, 1702, 1704 North 7th Street. They were brought before the standing committee back in March. They were unanimously approved, and that's why they were on the consent agenda tonight. I understand there are groups here for and against these applications. I'm all for letting them speak and give their thoughts on this, and then I'll be available for questions.
Do you have a map available?
Yes. Brief description of the map. You can see 7th Street there on the east, New Jersey on the south, Walker on the north. The green shaded properties there are the 3 land banks in question. Everything else other than on the far left bottom is owned by the church. So the land bank's position is that they already control, I would estimate, way over close to probably 85% of that total block. We feel that having this property with the church would complete what they want to do for their plans.
And this was approved by the advisory board
Yes,
and approved unanimously by the standing committee?
correct.
Okay. All right, so this is the piece in question. I will begin our public hearing by asking for if there's anyone in favor of this land bank application moving forward, to please come forward at this time. Anyone in favor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. Please let me introduce myself. I am Pastor A. Glenn Brady. I serve as the pastor of the New Bethel Church. I've been here since 2009, and at that time we acquired the property that is presently being shown. We've had tremendous growth in our membership. When I first came here, we had approximately 50-some members. I come from Ohio. And we can say that over these past 5 years that I've been here, our membership has grown to over 850 members and still growing. We're also very involved in the community. Commissioner Maddox has even had an event for the community in our church. Dr. Lane and the recent Kansas City, Kansas Public School had a forum there. We've done a number of things. We're been part of the Riverwalk position that we're doing now, Jersey Creek. We're also collaborated with a number of health issues, so we're very much involved. As you can see, we have already presented to the mayor and to the planning commission the design for a new church that will bring in several $1 million of development in this part of the corridor of 7th Street. And these last three lots are the last remaining lots that we need to complete what we need for our design. My concern is, and I don't know why the objection, these three lots have stayed vacant for over a decade. Nothing has been done, no usage, and now we're saying that we can take that property and finally put it to good use. We're not asking for an adult store or a payday loan or a liquor store. We're asking for it to be a house of worship. And if I would think anything that would enhance a neighborhood, when you bring millions of dollars of private money to have a house of worship that will be a stabilizing force for the neighborhood, I think that it's worthy. We're not asking for any other monies, as many of these have come tonight. We're just asking for those three lots that have lied vacant for over a decade to be given to us. We've already done work with the zoning, the planning, and we're waiting for it so we can move forward. We've already invested upwards to $55,000, engineering fees, architectural fees, and once we have this, we can go back and finalize all of our plans. So I certainly hope that you will be willing to do that. We've got other board members here represented, and I just trust that you'll grant us this option, that we can move forward. I think it'll be an asset to Kansas City, especially to this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor? Let the record show no one else is moving forward to the microphone. I will now ask if there's anyone in opposition to this to please step forward to the microphone at this time.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Beverly Easterwood. I'm the Vice President of the Douglas Sumner Neighborhood Association, as indicated by my orange T-shirt. But we talked about plans tonight. We talked about the plan for the soccer stadium. We talked about the plan for the Healthy Campus. And there's a plan also that Douglas Sumner participated in with numerous that took considerable time, effort, and money to develop. Ms. Lee made sure that all of you had copies of that development plan. because about a year ago, there was another issue about some land bank lots that were being requested, and we had a meeting at the list office with Chris Lauder, Donnie Smith from the CHWC, Angela Ely, who was our list representative, Mrs. Lee, and myself. And we thought we came away with some conclusions that were going to be implemented. And the main thing was that when we left that meeting, we were going to be provided with a map that had all the land bank lots identified. And with that map, the Douglas Sumner leadership would identify those lots that we thought might not be important to development for us going forward. You know, for side lots like some of the ones that were on the consent agenda that may not be important to our future development. We never received that map. We were also told that all the lots in the Douglas Sumner area would be reserved. And anyone that would request use of one of those lots would have to come forward with a development plan and also be given some kind of time frame under which they had to implement their plan. We had no knowledge of the church's plan. We have always invited them to our meetings, and one of the representatives from the church used to attend some of our meetings. But there's been a disconnect between the communication. So, in short, it's not so much that we're opposing the church. We're just asking for some communication, for some knowledge of plans that are being proposed.
You have
that
1
may
minute,
involve
ma'am.
the use of
1 minute.
Okay, that may involve the use of the land bank lots, and let us communicate. So in short, we would like to put this on hold, let us communicate together and see how we can move forward together.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition?
Beatrice Lee, excuse me. Beatrice Lee, I'm the president of Douglas Sumner Neighborhood Association. I'm here because I'm asking the commissioners to vote tonight to not approve this. Reasons being is that it's not only a disconnect. I get calls all the time, and this is what is happening, is that they're wanting, out of town even, wanting to get the lots in Douglas Sumner. This is why we asked Chris Lauder at our meeting at LISC to get this map together, because this was our idea, and we felt that what we could do as members, there's a lot of 18-foot lots there. You know, people wanting to extend their yards or different things like that. And then we was going to mark down which ones that was available, and that would eliminate a lot of people wanting to get the land. Now, they are saying that they called Mrs. Lee, and Mrs. Lee said that she approved it. Chris Lauder understood very clearly. He talked to me on Monday, said he would call me back. He did not call. There is a bad communication in the land bank about him communicating with us, and we haven't heard from him. And so even though LISC has had a lot of turnaround and a lot of changes there, we still going by our plan. We haven't seen the map yet, and that was a year ago that we requested that. So what needs to happen here is that all of the partners need to come back to the table together and to start talking and get this thing back on track is what my request would be. Thank you.
All right, anyone else would like to speak in opposition to this proposal tonight?
Hi, I'm actually not here to speak in favor or in opposition to this particular local issue, but since LISC has been mentioned a couple of times in this picture, I just wanted to offer that we also agree that it would be great if the church and the neighborhood association and LISC potentially as a facilitator could work with the land bank and with other stakeholders to really moving forward think about how we can collectively address the plans that are existing for the neighborhood and future plans and really try and get on the same page. And so I'm sort of here to offer that LISC is still very obviously invested in Douglas Sumner. We're working with the neighborhood association. We'd like to work with other stakeholders and of course with the commissioners around land use and planning issues in Douglas Sumner. And so I'd just like to put that forward on the table.
Thank you. Hold on just one moment. We do have, I need to ask, does anyone else like to speak in opposition to this? I see no one else moving forward. I will say our practice in these things is for the applicant. This is true in our planning and zoning, and we tend to follow that here. The applicant has an opportunity to make a summative statement before we move to the commissioners. So the applicant has an opportunity to come forward at this time. And this will close our public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to the commissioners. Mrs. Lee has sat in my office. We've delivered to them even a statement of our development. We've tried our best to communicate. We do not have a disconnect. The issue of the 3 lots, again, please understand, they are vacant. They have been vacant for 10 years. Nothing has been done. We have the opportunity to finish what we want with a fantastic design that will serve as a base for the 7th Street corridor. It's been put off once. To keep doing it is going to hinder our plans with development, with the city planners. I would encourage you. We're not talking about a whole bunch of land. We're talking about 3 lots that will just complete what we need. There are tremendous lots available all around. All we're asking is for these 3 that are presently not being used. We own all of the other property around. Nothing else really could be done with it. I trust that we will not delay it. It's already been approved unanimously, and I trust that we can just follow through. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll now close our public hearing. Commissioner Maddox.
Thanks, Mayor. I was actually the one 2 weeks ago that had the properties pulled off the agenda. I had them pulled off the agenda because as I seen them on the agenda when it was sent to me, I reached out to the president of Douglas Sumner and I asked her, has she been contacted about the properties? The reason why I contacted her, upon being elected, I was told about the partnership that was made between Douglas Sumner and LISC. And in that partnership, there was a Neighborhoods Now initiative, which I've seen the paperwork for, and I guess that was sent to everybody. In that Neighborhood Now initiative, there was supposed to be land that was blocked off for continuous development. Since that agreement has been made, there has been roughly 8 to 10 houses that have been built along the 7th Street corridor. It is my understanding that the hard work of the Douglas Sumner Neighborhood Association should come into play with this. I believe before the first house was built, there hadn't been a house built in Douglas Sumner in over 30 years. And so when you have that kind of thing going on, if we say that commissioners and a commission that we work with neighborhood associations to make sure that they are the ones that are making sure that their community is in upbeat fashion, then we should have a system that reflects that. And so if there is a land bank or anything of that nature and there's a Neighborhoods Now initiative in place, then automatically when those lots were applied for, the neighborhood association president should have been contacted. And so it's my understanding that maybe there is a disconnect. I knew there was a disconnect. I've seen the church grow. They have a great population of people down there. I've also seen the hard work that the Douglas Sumner Neighborhood Association has done in getting that land blocked off and the homes built. And if LISC is continuing to have that partnership there, it is my opinion that Chris Lauder and the Land Bank should be working with the Douglas Sumner Neighborhood Association to make sure that they have the land that is needed to continue the growth in that area. Again, before the first house was built, it hadn't been a house built there in 30 years.
Thank you. Commissioner Kane.
Chris, how long you been doing your job?
Since 2008.
And in 2008, that's the first complaint that I've heard about Chris. And you know, these lots have been vacant for 10 years?
Correct. Probably even longer than that.
Okay, I make a motion that the church gets the 3 lots.
It's been moved and seconded to assign these lots to the church. Is there further discussion? I see no further discussion. Roll call.
Roll call. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Sorry, I'm ready to leave. Aye.
Walker. Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Maddox.
No.
Kane. Vote is 6-2. That motion carries.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.